Hello, and welcome back to Navigating Chronic Illness with Heart and Hope, a space for reflection, renewal, and gentle encouragement for those navigating life with chronic illness and grief. I'm Valerie Alawiye, and I'm so grateful that you've joined us today. In our last episode, we talked about the shock and grief that accompanies a new diagnosis, the moment life changes overnight. Today, I want to turn to another equally important part of the journey, what it means to live with a chronic illness for the long term. Some of you listening have carried your diagnosis for years, even decades. You know the cycles, the patterns, and the realities of living with illness over time. And you also know that even when the diagnosis is no longer new, the grief may linger or even evolve. This is not the grief of sudden loss, but of slow endurance, the kind that unfolds over years, again, sometimes over decades, the kind that reshapes your identity, your relationships, your dreams, and your daily rhythms. It is the grief that others rarely see, but that you may carry quietly, faithfully, every single day. The early days of chronic illness are often marked by clear milestones: diagnosis, treatments, flare-up, and then recovery periods. But after a while, the crisis fades and you settle into what others might call normal, except it doesn't feel normal. It feels like you're living with a constant negotiation with your body, your limits, and your hopes. Grief is not a one-time event when it comes to chronic illness. It's something that revisits us again and again in different ways and at different stages. Grief arises when a flare forces you to cancel something meaningful. Grief surfaces when your body changes in ways you didn't choose. Grief deepens when you realize that some dreams may remain out of reach. Unlike the shock of a new diagnosis, the grief of long-term illness is often quieter, but it can also feel heavier. It's the weight of carrying something for so long that others around you may no longer see it, but you find yourself feeling invisible, misunderstood, or even dismissed because your illness has become old news to the outside world. This is the grief of the long haul. It is the ache of realizing that this is not a temporary detour, but a permanent landscape. The initial shock may have passed, but the reality remains. And over time, the world around you moves on. The phone calls slow down, the check-ins taper off. People assume that you're used to it by now, or that because you appear to be functioning, you must be fine. But inside, there's often a quiet sorrow that whispers, "I'm still carrying this. This is hard work." It takes grace and courage to continually rebuild meaning in a life that keeps changing the rules. Living with illness for years is exhausting. There's the physical weariness, of course, but also the emotional weariness of constantly adjusting, adapting, and advocating for yourself. Long-term grief doesn't arrive with tears and wailing. It seeps in through everyday moments like when you have to cancel plans because your body says no, absolutely not. When you realize the person you used to be feels distant and almost unreachable. When you see others move forward and you wonder what might have been. There's a name for this ongoing ache: chronic sorrow. It's the kind of grief that resurfaces whenever you face new limitations or when you're reminded of what you've lost. It's not self-pity. It's the natural emotional response to living with something that changes but never goes away. Some days you may feel strong and centered. Other days you may feel exhausted by the repetition of it all. the medical appointments, the fatigue, the need to explain and re explain your condition. That cycle can be emotionally draining, even for the most resilient spirit. And then there's the identity fatigue, the weariness that comes from having to redefine who you are again and again. Each time your illness shifts, your energy levels fluctuate, or your abilities change, you must reintroduce yourself to yourself. At some point, you experience an emotional plateau. You may feel as if the intense emotions have faded, leaving behind a kind of numbness. This emotional plateau can feel unsettling, like floating between sadness and acceptance. But this too is a part of the long haul process. It's your heart's way of pacing itself. Constant emotional intensity is unsustainable, so the spirit learns to find balance where it can. When you are in the long haul, hope must evolve. It shifts from, I hope this will go away, to, I hope I can live well within this. But here's the truth: sustaining hope in the long haul doesn't come from pretending the hard things are not hard. It comes from finding ways to renew yourself, even in small doses, so that you can keep going. Hope becomes less about cures and more about capacity, the capacity to find joy in small things, to nurture relationships that understand, and to keep learning who you are becoming. There is tremendous strength in that kind of hope. It's not fragile, it's rooted. But here's what is often overlooked: grief in the long haul can coexist with gratitude. You can appreciate the small joys, the sunlight through the window, the friend who understands, the days when you feel almost like yourself, and still mourn what you've lost. Holding both grief and gratefulness is not contradiction, it's wisdom. It's how we honor the full truth of our experience. Here are a few practices that can help you when you are living with long term chronic illness. Celebrate small wins: a day of reduced pain, an outing with a loved one, or simply getting good rest all count as victories. Revisit routines. Over time, your needs will change. Adjusting routines allows you to care for yourself more realistically. Build layered support. Create a circle that includes medical providers, friends, and communities of shared experience. Give grief space. Don't rush yourself to get over it. Allow grief to surface when it needs to, and then let it move through. Look for renewal. Find practices that refill your spirit, including journaling, prayer, art, music, or time in nature. While it's true that long term illness is hard, within the hardship, there's also resilience. You've built skills that many people never have to develop, like adaptability, patience, creativity, and courage. Sometimes meaning comes from using those strengths in service of others. Sometimes it comes from simply noticing the moments of beauty and gratitude that illness cannot take away. There might also be space for acceptance. Acceptance is not surrender. It's the quiet acknowledgement that this is your life and that your life, even with illness, still holds worth, dignity, and purpose. In the long haul, acceptance becomes a practice. Some days you embrace it, other days you resist it. That's okay. It's not about reaching a final destination. It's about learning to live fully inside the life you have, with as much compassion as you can give yourself. During these quieter seasons, healing may not look dramatic. It may look like routine, like showing up for another day of medication, gentle movement, or even rest. like giving yourself permission to live without needing every moment to feel meaningful or loud. If you've lived with chronic illness for years, I want you to hear this. Your perseverance matters, your courage matters, your story matters. When illness has been a part of your story for years, it can sometimes feel like it overshadows everything else about you. But you are not your diagnosis. You are a parent, a friend, a colleague, a dreamer, a creator. You are someone who contributes to the world in ways that go far beyond your health. Part of sustaining hope in the long term is remembering that your identity is larger than your illness. You are not defined by what illness has taken from you. You are defined by the strength and hope and authenticity you continue to bring to the world. Thank you so much for joining me today. And as always, may you move forward with heart, with hope, and with grace. Download this week's free reflection guide, Sustaining Hope in the Long Journey, at https://coachinghope.sustaining-hope-in-the-long-journey. Want to learn more? Subscribe to my newsletter for ongoing reflections, free tools, and notification of new episodes of Navigating Chronic Illness with Heart and Hope with Valerie Alawier, my video series on grief, illness, and gentle healing. Or visit us on our website at coachingforchronicillness.com to explore options to receive more support.